Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's talk about HBO Max, what happened, what's likely to happen next, and why there was a huge freak out over what was going to occur. And in this case, I do believe there's plenty of drama channels who love to just stir things up, get people crazy. A lot of people are right now in the extremes of everything is wonderful or everything is terrible. But in this case, the freak out over what was going to happen to HBO Max was not insane. It wasn't unfounded. I think there's enough history and enough kind of blood in the water that people who were really concerned about more dramatic changes in what we got, yeah, they're approaching that with reason, right? It wasn't what happened, but this is not like a crazy thing. Like if you get really hammered, we've all been there. Me last night. No, if you get really hammered and you wander into a very dodgy bar at 2 a.m. and you don't get robbed, then you should feel lucky. But we all kind of expected you to get robbed, and you probably should have in some weird way. I don't mean it that way. Anyway, let's get into kind of first of all what people were thinking was going to happen, and then what actually did happen. So the basics here are that fundamentally, the Warner Media Discovery merger was happening. In the run up to this, there was a lot of question marks about Warner Media and losing money. And keep in mind, their business model was predicated on this idea that streaming services were just going to go forever up. And this is a really important thing to note because a lot of people are now pretending they didn't think this. But places like Netflix, Disney Plus, Apple TV, Paramount Plus, all these different streaming services had built this business model and this revenue chart of just forever growth. We were going to add more subscribers. In fact, it was incrementally. It was not just hockey stick. It was curving faster and faster and faster. It was like COVID. But they basically were saying, we are going to, forever grow. It's never going to stop. And it's going to grow at a faster and faster rate each progressive week. Not progressive, anyway, phrasing. That is what they did. And Netflix in particular got spanked pretty hard by that recently, where they missed earnings. They're having some troubles. There's definitely kind of a huge backlash against what happened there. And then you saw similar things kind of get done. Apple TV has been kind of one of the negative marks of Apple's business model. Of course, they're doing great in other areas. A lot of the streaming services are just not panning out like people expected them to. And of course not, because it was a cash grab. It was like the gold rush of media. The TV is going to all shift this direction. Everybody's going to pay, and it's going to be amazing because now it's subscription fees, and we're going to hold it closer. All these things didn't pan out, and so HBO Max already had issues long before we led into this, and then the merger happens, and Discovery is going to cut costs and it's going to consolidate things. So of course the question mark becomes, I'll bet they're going to cancel HBO Max, and as they're looking at cutting movies. Batgirl gets cut. And by the way, if you didn't listen to the other video, it still is a fallacy to say that if you put $80 million into something, you might as well just go ahead and spend another 20 to 40 to finish it off. That's insane thinking. That's not how how anyone who likes to keep their money thinks. So that's just crazy talk. But at any rate, that's kind of where things had gone, where people's heads are at. So that's why you saw a lot of videos with the, Zaslav cancels HBO. HBO Max dying, and you get the little sad crying emoji, and go woke, go broke, HBO Max going away. And the reality is, no, as we've learned, and anyone could have predicted. In fact, I did predict this. This isn't a genius prediction. That when Discovery and HBO Warner Media merged, that you would get Discovery and HBO Max in one channel, much in the same way that you have Disney Plus and National Geographic in one channel, and they merge together fine. And you could say everything you want about, well, does Discovery's content really fit with HBO Max? No, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, it fits as well as National Geographic fits with Disney. I mean, if you've got Pixar and you've got Shark Week, do those go together? Not really, but hey, in a streaming platform, and this is where it's all going to go anyway. And by the way, we're not done. You're going to see further mergers and further inclusion. How long will Hulu continue to operate as a separate service from Disney Plus? Here's a hint: less than 2 years, but more than one. Why? Because there's somewhere between 1 and 2 years in the contract that states how long Hulu has to operate as a separate entity. After that point, it's up to Disney's discretion whether they want to fold it into the service. Right now, it's a bundle deal. Soon, it's going to be just all part of one. If you disagree, by all means, come at me, bro. But no, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's too expensive to maintain these different apps, and there's no value to having just more apps in the App Store, so they're all going to merge. So that's fundamentally what happened with HBO Max and Discovery. It merged. It became one. They update the UI. You got a tab interface at the top. There you have it. That's all you need. So that's where it goes. Now, what is also going to happen, and it's funny because here's the cycle of how a lot of these news happens, and this is why I've stressed it's not unreasonable for people thinking that HBO Max was going to completely collapse based on all the news and everything else that was going on. Again, it was a wrong call, but enough evidence is there that you can't point and laugh at those people. I mean, you could do that, and I think anyone who uses emojis and kind of that silliness in their thumbnails does deserve to get laughed at a little bit. But regardless, it all led to a consistent picture. However, what I'm noticing right now is that you had this arc of Discovery's coming in, and then you had a bunch of people do commentary about, HBO is being canceled, woke liberals crying, and then the announcement got made, hey, it's a merger, and now you're seeing the other brand of thumbnails is like, whatever it is, the toxic fandom claims it's going to be canceled, but no, look, it's doing just fine. The reality is, it's not doing just fine. This consolidation that's happening is going to have a profound impact on a lot of people's jobs, meaning there's going to be a ton of cuts. This is also not a mystery magical prediction. If you have two companies that do the exact same thing, in this case, yes, the content is different. For the person doing the programming, putting the stuff in, operationally keeping the servers up, all that kind of work, it is the same. It's the exact same for Discovery and for HBO, and there's going to be marketing people and everything else. There's redundancy. So what's going to happen? Well, there will be layoffs, and it will be somewhere in the tune of about 50%, I would guess, of if you take both groups and you combine them, 50% of one of those companies is going to go away. The combined company is going to be bigger than the two as individuals, but it's still going to be smaller than the two combined. I've seen some people saying 50% of Warner Media's people are for HBO are going to be laid off, and then Discovery will absorb that. Based on how Zaslav have done other things in the past, I think that it's more likely there will be cuts on both sides, but probably more from the Warner Media side for sure. They're the acquired company, and that's we're going to see that roll out over the next 6 months. So that just before you pat yourself too much on the back talking about the toxic YouTube channels who are predicting the end of the world, yeah, for several people it's the end of their jobs, at least, maybe not the end of the world, but it's definitely going to be the end of their employment. So that we have that to look forward to. But overall, you might be saying to yourself, hey, what about the comics? Are there going to be similar things going on in the comics? Well, there isn't, Discovery doesn't have a comic line, so you do not have the same redundancies taking place. But you do have people who are media outreach partners, ad sellers, publishing and distribution, etc. That is pretty robust and healthy on the Discovery side. So will those consolidate? Absolutely. You're going to see those consolidate. So you will see some jobs eliminated. There's not a ton of people in those jobs. So, I mean, we may be talking about, I don't know, 10 jobs that are redundant that get eliminated. I don't know, 20 maybe. But that's probably what we're looking at in the comics world, and that will hit as well. But overall, I don't know. It is fascinating. I think the HBO Max commentary was amazing in how it was. People were describing it as the end of the world. It was unlikely it was going to be the end of the world. But unlike other freakouts, this one absolutely was relatable. In fact, as I was looking for information about the timeline of this video, I came across an article literally saying the exact same thing. The great HBO freakout of 2022 was unwarranted, but understandable. It was understandable. Unwarranted? I don't know. What is unwarranted? Look, in a world of COVID and monkeypox or what is it, schlong COVID now? In a world where that kind of stuff's going on, people can't travel around. We've got skyrocketing inflation while simultaneously the government's telling you we're not in a recession, and job reports are absolutely dismal and catastrophic one month and then surpassing all expectations the next. We're living in a world where the news is all over the place. So before you go throwing around words like freakouts are unwarranted, I mean, read the room. Things are crazy all over the place. And a big merger like this, and with the news that had come on with Netflix and other places about how streaming services are going, yeah, it's totally warranted. The freakout is totally warranted. Um, so anyway, we'll see. HBO will continue, likely as a slightly stronger service now that it has more in it. But this is the big consolidation we're going to see happen. You're not going to have all these different channels running around. Peacock, where does that go? Maybe that survives, but you can't have all of these things all running around separately. So the next one to be folded in is most likely Hulu, but we'll see. Anyway, I've heard rumors that Peacock might get into a partnership with Apple TV because they need something to kind of boost their service. So in that case, you'd have a Apple TV Peacock combo, a Disney Hulu combo, ESPN's in there, National Geographic. We have HBO Discovery, and maybe they pick up, say, they fold in CNN somehow. I don't know. This is, and then Netflix is over there. That's kind of the world we live in. I think we live in four big services, and not the current like 8 that we have today. But there you have it. Anyway, that's the big HBO news. Thanks for listening.